You're listening to the Greening Out podcast. This show contains profanity, hate for the state, and themes of a libertarian nature. If you are easily offended, please listen to something else. For more, visit greeningoutpodcast.co.uk. Hi, I'm Katie Green.
I am Dan Green. Welcome back to the Greening Out podcast. Yeah, and today we are talking with award-winning activist, I believe, Jeff Burjustice. Jeff, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Jeff, you've been an active activist for a few years now, but for those people who might be listening who are not sure who you are, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your activism?
I'm an independent activist. I'm a YouTuber also, so I put a lot of my activism videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I have been doing activism since the year 2000 when I was 20 years old. I focused a lot on LGBT equality and starting the first visible LGBT group in my hometown. And then moving on from that years later, simultaneously, I also focus on the topic of the advancement of alternative political party options in America. And remind me, what country are y'all in?
Scotland.
Scotland. Okay, so yeah. I don't know pardon my ignorance, but I don't quite know your political system there.
It's okay.
But here in America, we have pretty much the Democrats and Republican parties who have been in control of this nation for the majority of its existence, and I think we should have more options. You know, we have, if you go to the store just to buy toilet paper, you've got like 20 different options of, you know, what to use for your rear end. You think we could have more options than just two options for who's running our nation. And then on top of that, I live out of my SUV by choice. Yeah. So I do a lot of focus on my own independent homeless outreach for folks who are also living in their vehicles, but the people that I'm meeting are not doing it by choice like I am. They're doing it because they're stuck in poverty.
I see. And now, do you find, Jeff, living out of your car, do you find that is helpful to your activism?
It might hinder me more than be helpful. I think part of that is because I'm traveling so much and moving around so much that I'm not really able right now to establish a home base the way that I did when I was in my hometown and I led that LGBT group. I was able to do that because I was there. So when you're moving around as much, you're not quite as able to establish a network and support base and things like that.
It's interesting as well because we've heard you talk before, like earlier on you were saying about the need for like a third party in the United States, because I understand that you do have these two dominant parties. But I can say though, here in the UK we have a lot of, especially in Scotland, there's a lot of different little parties, and I have to say, it used to just be really Tories versus Labour. That was really the Conservative versus Labour.
The fringe parties, but then there has been like
a resurgence.
It's much easier for parties to. I mean, in Parliament there's like I think it's 16 or something different parties, but still you're not really getting any major solutions.
It's almost kind of like too many chefs. It's just too many people in the kitchen.
Do you have proportional representation there also?
No, it's like a first past the post parliamentary democracy.
Okay.
So there was actually there was a vote it was a few years ago, and it wasn't even like some people had argued for proportional representation, and it was something kind of close to that, but that failed in a referendum. So in the Scottish Parliament, it's proportional representation, but as far as the Westminster system goes, which we're both entwined with, that's first past the post classic parliamentary democracy.
Well, I'm also a bit of a contradiction because ultimately I'm a wannabe voluntarist, which is...
A wannabe, Jeff. Tell us more.
Tell us more.
Well, for folks who may not know, voluntarist is more or less a synonym for anarchist. And I'm not, because obviously if the, cop car's behind me and the flashing lights are flashing behind me, I'm going to pull over to avoid, getting shot because they'll use lethal force if you don't. Yeah. But so that's why I say wannabe, because we can only be, those of us who prefer to try to be or aspire to be voluntarists can only do so much. And in the world as things are the way they are. So I look at voting for alternative parties here in America as sort of a lesser of evil, transitional type of thing. I think if you can open minds up about moving on past the two-party system. And here in America, it's almost like a cult. It's like a religion where people are just, and especially if they're born into a political idea and their parents are political, then, it's sort of an indoctrinated thing. So a lot of people are born into these things and don't even think critically about it. They just go along and so perpetuate things the way they are. But ultimately, my wish for humanity is for people to emancipate from what I call the three fear-based systems of control, which to me are religion, government, and market, and substitute those things with lovingly sharing and coexisting. But we are, centuries, perhaps, I don't know if centuries, but certainly a long, maybe perhaps century or many decades away from anything resembling that. So in the meanwhile, I just sort of engage politically in sort of a harm reduction strategy. Harm reduction meaning I tend to only vote when it comes to things that would stop people from getting harmed, like the criminalization or whatever way you want to say it, decriminalizing marijuana, for example.
Sure,
legalizing marriage equality. While government shouldn't be in our relationships, while it is, obviously it should be equal for everybody. So those are the kinds of ways that I try to engage.
Okay.
Well, see, that's interesting because I kind of, I took the sort of gay marriage thing here. Now, gay marriage is legal here. And,
it is now, yep.
Yeah, and I had absolutely no problem with that at all. I'm a libertarian, I identify as that. Didn't bother me whatsoever, but what I noticed was there was a lot of stuff going on, and I think they enjoyed a bit. The sort of political, powers that be here, I think they enjoyed a lot of the debate that went on over it because, of course, who cares what consenting adults do, as long as they're not hurting anyone. But the media here
took it.
Yeah, so then there was all these things you've got wars going on and stuff, and social liberties, but personal liberties I'm talking about mostly the growth of the surveillance state, which has been massive. You've got all this stuff going on, and then we had people arguing about what marriage means. You had these sort of traditionalist people going, oh, marriage means a man and a woman, and then you had these sort of, you had the people that basically were secularists and said, well, why is it not equal? And it just seemed like it was a big distraction at one point, and we were all just arguing over terms. Do you know what I mean?
Terms can mean stuff to people, though, I suppose.
Yeah, but it kind of felt like a bit of a distraction, if you know what I mean, if you understand.
Well, I'm not sure what the laws are like there, but here in the United States, marriage involves a lot of different things regarding custody of children and hospital visitation and different things pertaining to insurance and Social Security. And if they happen to be in the military, then military benefits and all these types of things. So therefore, the legal access to that does become important again while government is involved in these things. It shouldn't be, but while it is, therefore, but sure. And regarding, issues that pertain, the types of things that you just raised, the police state, the total surveillance society, if I heard you correctly. One of my disappointments I'm a gay man myself. I'm not sure if you two knew that, but
we do.
So the fact, when I look at a lot of what I call mega groups, the large 501c3 nonprofits or the 501c4 political groups here in the United States, a lot of them are very singular issue, and if it doesn't fit in that two-party system narrative, then they're really not interested in those issues. And I think that's a shame because the gay community is a little bit hypocritical. And I guess when I'm generally speaking, obviously, but I'm talking more so about political leadership amongst LGBT mega groups. A lot of them are very hypocritical because they're so demanding and insistent that other groups of people care about our issues. They try to say things like discrimination hurts everybody and, blah, blah, blah. Well, so do these other issues. But when somebody like Chelsea Manning is being persecuted by our government while it's got a Democrat president, they don't seem to care as much about that type of thing. I bet you, though, if Chelsea Manning had been the media story that it is while Bush was president, I bet you they would have gave a damn a lot more.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? How Obama was talking about, closing Guantanamo Bay and things like that, and all these kind of things about how he was going to be different than Bush. But then, you've got military action in the Middle East again.
They're going back, I think.
So it doesn't matter if it's, that should show anyone, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat, it's just the same stuff.
Correct. There's a good thing that people can search online. I don't know who the person behind this website is, but if you type in Bush, Obama, same drama, those are the keywords.
I like that.
I'll say it one more time in case people missed it. That's Bush, Obama, same drama. I don't know who is behind that website, but there's a great compilation of a list of just, again, the broken promises, basically outlining how a lot of Obama's policies are the same as Bush. And even back in the 2012 election, our last presidential election here, we're in the YouTube age, so there were tons of videos that would clearly show both Mitt Romney and Obama blatantly lying or contradicting themselves from one statement to another. And it's just surreal that people can see such blatant lying because we're in the internet age, so you can't hide things as easily as perhaps before, and yet they'll still just blindly justify and make excuses for supporting these people, and that's insane to me. It's like abuser victim mentality, where you have people abusing you and you keep going back to them and justifying and making excuses. I hate to make that analogy because I don't take domestic violence lightly, but it is perhaps it's worse because the violence in this case manifests in war and mass poverty, which hurts people on such a mass scale.
And you know what you're saying, because I understand that totally. And do you think it's for example, why people have these views, why they're willing to put up with this kind of thing, and why they can't see how basically it's one party masquerading as two in a way? Do you think it's got a lot to do with the sort of mainstream media in a lot of ways and how things are packaged, and especially with news coverage, how it's, different stories are differently lighted and stuff for emotive effect and things like that, and certain stories are suppressed and certain ones are, talked up in a certain narrative? Do you think that's got a lot to do with it?
Culture and the news have merged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm presently in the Los Angeles area, and one time I was at my friend's house and I saw the 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock news, whatever it was, and I kid you not, the top leading stories they led with that night was something about Michael Jackson, something about O.J. Simpson, and something about Kim Kardashian. I swear that was their leading so-called news, and that was the supposed to be the grown-ups news, not Entertainment Tonight, and I couldn't believe that was how they were leading their thing. And there's a big dumbing down of people in this country, and I think it's manifesting most of all a lot in the entertainment culture, where a lot of movies just look stupider than before. A lot of music looks stupider before. I hate to sound like such a grumpy old man because I'm only 34, but there's a movie called Idiocracy that outlines. Y'all, are you familiar with that one?
We are, yes. I actually haven't watched it all the way through because I started it 5 years ago and something distracted me, but I remember, was it Owen Wilson or Luke Wilson? I think it's Luke.
One of them.
One of them. But please continue.
Yeah, I'm just saying, so it seems like there's such a dumbing down of culture, and that relates to what y'all were talking about the media, and it's what I call the weapons of mass distraction. There's an abundance of information, an abundance of ability to access information, but so much of it is just garbage. And for example, I'm on Facebook because I have to be a shameless self-promoter as a YouTuber.
Of course.
Who doesn't?
As are we.
Promoting my Jeff for Justice YouTube channel. That's the number 4, not the word 4. Jeff for Justice on YouTube, Twitter.
Of course.
But anyway, log on Facebook and, you get this junk news on the side that's telling you about the latest this or that movie and a lot of so-called news, is not even news anymore. It's just commercials for products like when the new iPhone comes out, it's, makes it consumes so much of the news headlines and
the manufacturer stories about it.
That's not news. That's commercial. Sorry, I missed your comment. What did you say?
And I was just saying, like, yeah, they manufacture, like, an iPhone comes out and then they manufacture news stories to do with that iPhone so that they'll be in the news. So it is just basically like one huge commercial.
Absolutely. It's just appalling.
One of the things I've noticed there when you were talking about how there seems to be like a dumbing down. And Dan and I have talked a lot on this show about state infantilization. And obviously, if you are in charge, I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, right? I'm putting on my tinfoil hat because if I was in charge of some kind of country and I was an evil person, which I would have to be up there, and I wanted control of everybody, I would love it if they were really, really, really stupid. That would just be the ideal situation.
Yeah, but it would be perfect if you put on like your evil Bond villain sort of hat for a minute.
Costume,
you would think that then you would say, well, why would the media be dumbing people down? And if you think from a person of power, you would think, well, yeah, from their perspective, they would love everyone to be dumbed down.
Well, I think part of that then goes hand in hand with religion, which really, of course, tries to get people not to think critically and just to accept what they're told. So you start with religious authority figures, and then, of course, school indoctrinating you with the idea of government authority figures, and listen and obey and don't ask. And, if we say you have to do this, then you have to do that. And so I think a lot of that comes from the school and also the church. Which often is hand in hand with government here in America. I've seen it firsthand. I'm obviously an atheist now, but back when I was a person of faith, I used to go to church, and even though they're not supposed to, more or less, if you read between the lines, they were saying vote Republican. And here in America, I think that, as we talked about, are the parties more or less the same? Yeah. But do I think there's a lesser of evil between the two? Slightly, just in the dialogue. The Democrats are supposedly more pro-LGBT. So that was a process. It's not like it was always that way. And then, their rhetoric is generally more pro-person in poverty, poor, homeless people. But in actions, that's not the case. I mean, I'm here in California where the Democrats have been in control of this state since Arnold left in 2010, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He used to be our governor here.
Oh, dear. I'm so sorry.
So, after he left, the Democrats have been in control, and as much rhetoric as they have about helping the homeless, there continues to be this persecution of homeless people city to city where they criminalize sitting, or they criminalize sleeping, or they criminalize sleeping in your vehicle, and all this insanity. And there was supposed to be a homeless Bill of Rights passed here, but it ain't happened yet.
Shocker, really.
Yeah, shocker. But isn't that always the way that you can't really... It's so hard to trust people who are running for office because, like, when they're in the mainstream parties and that, they're just so far involved...
They'll just say anything.
Yeah, exactly. They're just so far involved with so many backers and people who are funding them, and it gets to the point where they'll just have any populist policy as long as it suits their backers. And that's just, for me, that's why I don't really believe in politics, because I just think it doesn't work.
I can't take it seriously. I can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically, it's really a destructive thing to society, because it's really conditioning people to accept lies as truth and to acclimate themselves to it and to justify it. And then that manifests, I think, in other people's ways in life, because then you're tolerating a bad relationship that you should be out of, or you're not standing up for yourself as something as simple as a business that treated you badly and you should get a refund, but you don't bother to stand up for yourself. So it's like a acquiescence into just throwing your hands up and always giving in to bad situations and never standing up for yourself. And I just got to say, though I advocate for alternative political parties to be included in the political process, such as open debates and fair election laws, I say have blind faith in nobody. Have blind faith in no public figures. Have blind faith in no media, not even indie media. Have blind faith, except for you guys and us and Jefferson. But no, seriously, have blind faith in no media. And the best change you can hope for in the world is what you can directly impact in your own family circle, in your own friendship circle, and then in your own community, whatever way you choose to do that.
So do you think it kind of starts at home? Starts with the one person?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have a college background. All I took was one public speaking class in college. So I don't have to have a fancy degree to go out and do homeless outreach with what I can. And I have, I'm a person in poverty myself, so I only have limited resources and limited time. But if I'm out there and in my SUV and I see 10 people living in their cars, I can go talk to them and interview them and give them a voice on my YouTube channel. And then if I have, I also take a handout with me now that I customize it for whatever region I happen to be in. And a lot of that's the LA area now. So if I am in a certain city, then I can take that homeless outreach handout and say, here's how you can get the Obama phone. Here's your low-cost auto insurance program in California. Here's how to get free glasses, this list that I have. So, but I don't have to be a part of a fancy nonprofit group. I don't have to have a fancy title. I don't have to have a college degree. And I think sometimes people are held back and intimidated by waiting for some other leadership, whether it's politics or even a nonprofit group or a church group. And I say, if you have a thought in your head to do something good, whether it's volunteering, activism, or whatever way that manifests, don't wait. Just do the best you can. And also have a thick skin, because sometimes as an activist, we get a lot of criticism from people who should be our allies. So, you don't have to meet anybody's standard except for your own. I'm an independent activist and I do the best I can. And if that's not good enough for any critic, then that's their problem, not mine.
Well, that's awesome. And if people want to find you and, they can donate to your cause and to your activism, where can they find you, Jeff? Jeff for Justice. Well, I have my website, jeffforjustice.com, which I never update. So if you just type in Jeff for Justice on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, YouTube is probably where I'm most active, then you're able to find me there. And I've got contact me ways on my website. And if anybody sends me a message, I always do my best to reply to any message I get. And that's Jeff for Justice, the number 4, not the word 4.
Cool. And awesome, Jeff. And just what I'm thinking here is, so if we're talking about activism, there's a kind of debate with a lot of people whether doing activism on the street or, some people that do activism like out on the street actually get
versus
in there.
Like
and to people that just
type.
do media and call it activism, then some of the people on the street say that the guys that just do media, they're not really activists because that's not really activism. What do you think about that?
I think everybody has to find their own way, and I used to be very critical, especially back when I was leading my hometown LGBT group, which was in a region called Yuba Sutter. That's YUBASUTTR, and that's a region north of Sacramento, California, here in California. And that was an area where it was very Proposition 8, which banned marriage for gays back in 2008, passed by 70% or 70-80%. So that just gives you an idea of how hostile that region was to the LGBT community. And it's a very religious military town. And when I got started, again, there was no I barely, all I took was one public speaking class. So there was certainly no guide, no handbook, no map for me. And I had to do a lot of trial and error. And I had to, there was no how to do this for dummies book for what I was doing. So I had to just do my best. And I took a lot of criticism, as much from LGBT folks as probably more so than definitely more so than the anti-gay folks, who seem to be more preoccupied by the abortion topic than the LGBT topic. But anyway, trailing off, back to that. So I used to be very much, like, if you're not like me and you're not an activist like me, then you're doing it wrong and shame on you. And then I had to adjust and realize that that's just not a realistic position that you can take. So you have to meet people where they're at. And if the best somebody can do is come to an event or post something on Facebook or whatever they can do, then just meet them where they're at. And if you want them to do something different, all you can do is try to encourage and inspire, but ultimately it has to be their choice. And no amount of shaming or forcing will really work in getting a person to do what you want. So it's better just to try to inspire and lead by example, and accept the fact that people at the forefront are always probably going to be a small group. But everybody has to find out for themselves how they like to best contribute. Again, whether you want to call that activism or volunteering, whether it's just volunteering at a soup kitchen or whatever way you want to do it. There's certain things I like doing and don't like doing. I'm not a big fan of going out and marching and demonstrating.
Yeah.
I might do it, I might not. I would do it for networking and for the human camaraderie. But I feel like it's limited in what it accomplishes. But I'm not going to knock people who go out and do it. If they feel good about it, then good for them. I prefer helping homeless people the way I do, and I focus on people living in vehicles because that's what I know firsthand.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big fan of going to a soup kitchen, and I'm not because I feel like I'm just a cog in a wheel standing in line. I don't feel like that's the most productive use of my time. So,
Sure.
I mean, like standing in line helping by serving the food. So you just got to find what works for you and what you enjoy most, but also try to keep in mind if you're particularly concerned about any certain quote unquote political issue, really think long and hard and objectively about whether you're really striking at the root of an issue too. And that kind of can be hard and murky because, again, obviously, I'd rather marriage equality exist while things are the way they are, but that's not really striking at the root of the problem. The problem is government's insistence on trying to control and regulate relationships.
Exactly. No, I absolutely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I suppose as well, like you said, when you actually reach out to homeless people, at least, it's different because maybe some people that reach out to them, they would be like, well, what do you know about it? But then, you could say to them,
your personal
I know exactly
experience
about
from
it because I'm sort of living it as well. And do you sort of just run off donations and things, Jeff? Yeah, is that how you sort of get by?
I'm independent, so donations and then whatever I can scrounge from my own pockets.
Yeah.
And I have an app on my smart device thingy that tracks my expenses. And there's been times where I have been in need. So because I'm not ashamed to ask for help because I help and nobody is obligated or entitled and anything like that. But we are humans. We ought to lift each other up when we can. So when I am in need, I've asked for help. And I calculated my expenses for 2014 from the app. Well, actually, I didn't. The app did it. And I found that as much as I got in donations last year, I actually gave back in charity and helping people. Good. So it might be something like I bought food for a homeless person I met. It might be helping a friend with rent or some hardship that they were going through. So interesting enough that a lot of anytime I'm asking for something, it goes back to folks. And particularly regarding the homeless outreach, I've been to different areas. So if I get more donations for that, I can travel more and afford the fuel more and afford to follow up more. So sometimes I can't always go back and follow up. So what I do is I offer my phone number to the people I meet and say, well, I may not be able to come back, but what I can do is give you my phone number and say, if you have any needs, give me a call that I can look up online research, basically. If you need me to online research for something for you, here's my number. And the other thing, too, about that is when I'm an activist, I always try to identify what I can do. So I think a good idea is never ask somebody, and not only as an activist, but just in general, when you see a person in need of help, it could even be something like a breakup. I went through a breakup this year. I think a good thing to do to people when they're in need is say, here's what I can do for you, and then identify those things, as opposed to saying, what do you need or what can I do for you? Because, well, if you wanted to know what you can do for me, give me $1,000 or, you know.
Yeah.
So it's better to say, here's what I can do for you. That way it get rid of certainty and it is more assuring to people in a time of hardship.
Well, Jeff, you really are living, you are living activism, basically.
Yeah.
That is your life, and we really, really respect you for that.
Thank you.
So it's been awesome having you on the show today, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We really enjoyed it, Jeff.
So again, it's Jeff 4, the letter 4, Justice.
Number 4.
The number 4, sorry, the letter 4.
The number 4.
Where am I coming from? So it's Jeff, the number 4, justice.com, is that right?
Correct.
Awesome. And obviously from us, for more libertarian podcast writings, news, ramblings, and so on and so forth, you can go to greeningetpodcast.co.uk. From us both, Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's Katie and Dan?
Yep.
Am I getting the names right?
That's right.
I'm ashamed of myself. I'm bad at names that time. But Katie and Dan, thank you. And I'll be happy to share and promote the Greening Out podcast. Send me the link when we're done, and I'll tell all my audience to check y'all out. And thanks for what you do to promote dialogue, talking about liberty and activism. Thank y'all.